Hi, I'm Thelina. I showed up to my sister's engagement party with a gift and found out my name wasn't even on the guest list. No seat, no welcome. Just a look from my mom that said, "Don't ruin her moment." But the moment that changed everything came when her fiancé walked up and said, "Hi, boss." That's when the room went silent, and I realized I was never invisible. They just needed me quiet. Before we dive in, what would you have done? And where are you listening from? Drop a comment. I want to hear from anyone who's ever been left out by their own family. I pulled into the gravel driveway just a few minutes before noon, my GPS still chirping even after I turned the car off. The sun overhead was warm but not oppressive, casting a soft glow on the edges of the white marquee tent that sat like a jewel on the manicured lawn. My black midi dress clung slightly to my back, the early May breeze doing little to stop the nervous warmth that rose through me. I took a breath, grabbed the small gift bag from the passenger seat, and stepped out. A few guests were already scattered around the venue, chatting, glasses in hand. The decorations were tasteful. Floral arches, pale pink linens, custom signage. I had to admit, Romy's aesthetic was always flawless. As I walked toward the welcome table, I caught a glimpse of myself in the glass doors of the venue's reception hall. Simple, polished, understated, just like always. The young woman at the welcome table smiled without really looking at me. "Hi there. Name?" "Thelina Marin." She scanned the iPad with her manicured finger, then paused. "Thelina. Sorry, could you spell that?" I did. Her smile wavered slightly, then returned, but more rehearsed this time. "Are you with catering?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You're listed under support beverage station." She tilted the iPad to show me. My name was right there, clear as day, but not under guests, under support. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Something cold coiled in my stomach as I turned my head slowly toward the lawn. My mother stood across the way, holding a flute of champagne, chatting with two women from our church. She must have felt my stare, because she turned slightly, just slightly, and then looked away, like she hadn't seen me at all. I swallowed hard. I looked back at the check-in girl and forced a polite smile. "I think there's been a mix-up. I'll just head in." She hesitated. They wanted only confirmed guests beyond this point. "I understand." I turned away before she could finish, already walking along the gravel path. I didn't know what hit harder, that my name had been deliberately misfiled, or that no one, not a single person, had reached out before this day to let me know. The seating chart was pinned to a whitewashed board near the entrance to the garden. Names alphabetized, clean calligraphy. My eyes scanned the list twice, then again. I wasn't there. There were names I hadn't heard in years, distant cousins, high school friends of Romy's, even a few neighbors, but not mine. A family friend walked by and greeted me with a quick, distracted, "Oh, hey, glad you could make it," as if I were one of the staff. I didn't correct her. My grip tightened on the handle of the gift bag I'd picked out for Romy and Dorian, a custom engraved photo frame, the kind of thing you give when you still believe you're a part of someone's future. I stepped aside and stood near a white lattice fence that edged the main lawn, just enough distance to be unseen, but still close enough to watch. My mind drifted. Flashback to last summer's family brunch. Romy had just gotten promoted. Everyone clapped. Mom beamed like she'd raised a Nobel laureate. When I mentioned closing my Series B funding round, my father nodded once and changed the subject to lawn care. The memory hit like a mosquito bite, small, sharp, lingering. I looked down at the gift bag. My hands were shaking now, even though the day was warm. I wanted to leave. Just turn around, go back to Newton, and pretend I never showed up. But I didn't. I walked inside. The interior was beautiful. The catering staff bustled with efficiency. Everything was crisp and coordinated. Waiters moved like dancers, carrying trays of sparkling rosé and charcuterie cones. Music played softly, some indie acoustic version of a familiar pop song. I felt like an outsider in a curated dream I had nothing to do with. No one greeted me. No one seemed surprised to see me either. I walked past the guest book table, where pens and Polaroids were laid out. I almost reached for one, out of habit, but stopped myself. Instead, I made my way to the edge of the lawn, standing behind a row of rose bushes. It gave me a partial view of the entrance where the luxury car had just pulled in. A photographer hustled to position himself, snapping away as the driver came around and opened the door. Out stepped Romy. Her smile was perfect. Her dress, a designer blush silk piece, hugged her body like it had been stitched directly onto her. Her hair gleamed in the light, styled just enough to look effortless. She looked like someone who belonged in a bridal magazine. And she hadn't seen me. I wasn't sure what stung more, being left off the list or realizing that my absence didn't change a thing for her. I stayed rooted to the spot, frozen behind the hedge, watching Romy laugh with Dorian and pose for photos like nothing in the world had gone wrong. For her, maybe it hadn't. "Why is she even here?" someone whispered as I set the untouched gift bag down beside the flower arrangement. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to know whose voice it was. I'd heard variations of that same question for years, sometimes in words, more often in glances or the pointed lack of them. I stood still near the drink station, pretending to adjust my bracelet, and gave myself a few more seconds to gather my breath. The laughter near the photo backdrop rose louder. Romy had arrived, and already the center of gravity had shifted. The flashbulbs, the high heels clacking on stone, the compliments layered like frosting. It was her show, no question about it. I checked my phone, half hoping for a reason to leave. No messages, no missed calls. I was on my own, like always. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, sharp, deliberate. I turned and saw her, my mother, Lorna Marin, always impeccable, always 2 steps ahead of a judgmental comment. She was carrying something draped over one arm. I already knew it was for me before she even spoke. "Honey," she said in that sing-song tone reserved for social correction, "you really can't wear black today. It's not a funeral." She held out the pastel-colored wrap dress, something soft and floral. Not my style, not my voice, not a version of me I'd ever worn. I looked at it, then at her. "There's something wrong with what I'm wearing?" Her eyes flicked over me. "It's Romy's big day. Everything is coordinated. The photos, the palette. I just thought you might want to blend in a bit better." "Blend in?" I said nothing. I just held her gaze long enough for the smile on her face to twitch. She shifted tactics. "That dress, it's very sharp. You look intense. We don't want anything too harsh showing up in the family pictures." There it was again, the coded language. What she really meant was, I looked out of place, too severe, too capable, too visible. "You're saying I make people uncomfortable?" "Don't be dramatic," she laughed quickly, but her hand on the hanger tightened. "I just want today to be peaceful. Don't start something, okay?" "I didn't," I said, voice level. "You did." She took a breath through her nose. "This isn't about you, Thalina." And before I could answer, she turned and left the dress hanging on the corner of a table, like a challenge. I didn't touch it. I just stood there, letting my pulse settle. It wasn't about the dress. It never had been. It was about managing me, about placing me where I couldn't outshine, couldn't disrupt, couldn't complicate the narrative they'd curated for Romy's golden hour. I found a small wooden bench near the back of the garden, half shaded by a weeping willow. From here, I could see the photographer orchestrating shots with the bridesmaids, Romy throwing her head back in laughter while someone adjusted her train. My mother hovered nearby, eyes darting between camera and guests like a stage manager with too much caffeine. No one missed me, not even for a second. A couple passed by, chatting about the shrimp skewers and the lemon water. They didn't notice me either. Good. The contrast was staggering. Romy basked in the glow of attention. Compliments fluttered around her like moths to porch light. She always had the timing, the softness, the charm. I'd once admired it. Now, I saw it for what it was, a carefully maintained facade with barbed wire underneath. I heard another voice behind me, closer this time. Didn't think she'd actually show up. She wasn't even on the list. I checked. Well, Mom said she guilted her way in. You know how she is. The 2 voices drifted off, swallowed by the chatter and music. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. Let them talk. Let them pretend like I'd just wandered in uninvited, like I was some distant cousin clinging to relevance. I reached down and unclipped the dress tag still dangling from the wrap my mother had left. Still new. Still with the receipt tucked in. She hadn't bought it for me. She'd bought it for the idea of me that she could tolerate. I refolded it gently and laid it flat on the table beside a stack of napkins, as neatly and untouched as my place in this event. I checked the time. Only an hour since I'd arrived. It already felt like a lifetime. I debated leaving. Just getting in the car, driving back to Newton, and spending the rest of the day in the lab where things made sense, where I wasn't a threat just for existing. But something made me stay. Not out of pride, not even defiance. Something quieter. Heavier. Like I needed to see the show through this time. Watch it fall apart on its own, without me ever raising my voice. As I stood again and moved closer to the tent, a waiter passed with a tray of champagne. He offered me one with a smile, and I accepted it wordlessly. At least the drink didn't ask me to change who I was. I stood there, still gripping the stem of the champagne glass, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. But I had. The words echoed in my chest long after the voices drifted away. I kept my eyes fixed ahead, letting the bubbling sound of the nearby fountain soften the ache that curled inside me like cold smoke. I needed air. Or maybe I just needed to disappear, somewhere quiet, where my body wouldn't betray how tight my throat felt. I slipped around the side of the tent, away from the main lawn, through a narrow gravel path that curved behind the venue. The world dimmed slightly as I entered a small courtyard flanked by hedges and brick walls, the kind of tucked-away space brides might use for portraits or stolen kisses. Today, it was empty. I sat on the stone bench beside the fountain, setting my glass down beside me. The water trickled gently. Beyond the courtyard, I could still hear faint laughter and clinking glasses, but it all felt distant. Muffled, like I'd stepped behind a sheet of glass. I tilted my head back and let the filtered sun touch my face. A breeze rustled the leaves above me. And then came the voices. They drifted down from a cracked window just above. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I barely had time to move before the words landed. She's not bad, just intense. My mother's voice, clear, casual, unbothered. She makes Romy feel judged. She doesn't mean to, but it's just her presence. Like a shadow that lingers. My spine stiffened. The silence after that was almost worse than the sentence itself. No one objected. No one defended me. It wasn't said in anger. It was said as if it were simply known. Like weather. Like wallpaper. Like a truth they'd all silently agreed on years ago. I sat completely still, afraid that even the sound of my breath might confirm I'd heard it. A shadow that lingers. The words curled around my ribs and stayed there. I don't know how long I sat like that, staring into the fountain's shallow pool, watching a leaf float in slow, careless circles. It wasn't the first time I'd been called too much, too serious, too cold, too direct. But hearing it said so plainly, like a diagnosis no one wanted to treat, that was different. My mind wandered, uninvited, to a day years ago. 14 years old. I'd just won the school's Academic Excellence Award. A framed certificate, a short speech. I remember standing in front of the library, flushed with the kind of pride only kids who rarely get attention know how to feel. Then Romy arrived, late, of course, wearing a fitted pale yellow dress and a lip gloss that shimmered in the sun. She smiled, and 3 parents near the steps gasped. "She looks like she could be a model," someone whispered. Right next to my mother. That night, as we posed for a family picture, I stood next to Romy holding my certificate. My mother glanced at me and said, "Honey, don't frown. You're making the photo feel cold." That photo sat on the mantel for years. You could barely see the certificate in the frame. You could barely see me. Back then, I thought it was an accident. Now I know better. I rose from the bench slowly and brushed the creases from my dress. I couldn't hide out forever, and if I vanished now, it would just feed the same quiet narrative they'd been spinning for decades. She doesn't fit in. She's distant. She always keeps herself apart. I walked back toward the main building, heart steady but hollow. As I rounded the corner, a woman in a soft pink jumpsuit raised her phone for a photo and caught sight of me. She turned slightly and smiled. "Hi, are you part of the catering team?" My mouth opened, closed. I gave her a polite smile. No, I'm not, I said quietly. She looked momentarily flustered, but turned back to her group without another word. I didn't blame her. I passed the camera crew near the bar area. Their lenses moved methodically, searching for moments worth capturing. Warm hugs, happy tears, the golden couple from every angle. They never paused on me, and I didn't expect them to, because today wasn't about me. It never had been. But as I stepped through the doorway, one heel after the other pressing into the manicured grass, something inside me, something old, something quiet, shifted. Not loud, not visible, but real enough that I knew it wouldn't unshift again. I didn't know what exactly cracked inside me when I turned away from the courtyard, but I felt it, like a fault line finally giving under pressure. Quiet, but irreversible. I walked back toward the main lawn, a little slower now, as if some part of me didn't want to re-enter that world, but another part refused to retreat. The same string of curated laughs echoed from the tent. Someone popped a bottle of champagne. A camera shutter snapped in quick succession. By the time I reached the refreshments table again, I'd already smoothed my expression back into something presentable. I picked up another glass, mostly for something to hold, and tried to blend in with the crowd. It was working, until a woman I didn't recognize approached. Mid-50s, expensive heels, holding a tiny gold clutch like it was a Fabergé egg. She leaned in slightly, squinting. I'm so sorry to bother you. Are you Romy's co-worker, or someone from Dorian's company? I blinked. I'm her sister. Her brows lifted in a split-second flicker of surprise. Oh, I didn't realize. I gave a short smile. She laughed softly, maybe embarrassed, maybe not. Well, it's such a big event. I'm sure I just missed the introductions. She moved on, and I stood there gripping the base of my glass so tightly my knuckles ached. I hadn't missed the introductions. I had been excluded from them, deliberately. The thought sat bitter on my tongue, but I swallowed it. No scenes, no tears. That wasn't who I was, and apparently, even that wasn't enough for this family. I turned toward the hallway near the restrooms, hoping for a few quiet minutes. The interior of the venue was lined with family portraits, those carefully curated memory walls everyone loved so much. And then I saw it. A series of photos lined the hallway like a scrapbook brought to life. Childhood shots, vacations, birthdays, graduations, every frame polished, every smile camera-ready, and I wasn't in any of them. At first, I thought it might have been coincidence. Maybe just a different selection, but I kept scanning. In the group photos, I was behind someone, half hidden, cropped. In one, I remembered exactly where I stood, between Romy and my dad, a white dress, braces barely off. I remembered it clearly because it was the only time my grandmother had called me pretty. But in the frame, I wasn't there. Someone had edited me out. The spacing was too symmetrical, too intentional. They had removed me from my own family's history. Something inside my chest tightened, not the sharp pain of anger, but something duller, deeper, the kind of pain that came when the truth finally stopped hiding. This wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't neglect. This was a rewrite. I turned away quickly before anyone could see my face. No one noticed, not Romy, who was now posing in front of a flower arch with Dorian's extended family. Not my mother, who hovered nearby adjusting someone's boutonniere like it was her job to make sure the entire day looked good from every angle. I passed a cluster of bridesmaids laughing near the bar. None of them looked at me. My aunt walked right past me, chatting with someone about Romy's honeymoon plans. Nothing. No nod. No smile. It hit me then, clearer than anything else had today. I didn't want the spotlight. I never had. I just wanted to be in the picture. I found a quiet corner table near the back patio, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling through my gallery. Old photos, birthday dinners, Christmas mornings, hospital visits when Dad got sick, group chats, screenshots. In every image, I was there when someone needed something. A ride, a reference letter, a loan, a last-minute pickup when someone's car broke down, but never the center, never celebrated. Always the helper, the planner, the shadow. And then came the messages. A text from Mom months ago. Do you mind picking up the cake for Romy's shower? Just say it's from all of us. Another one from Romy 2 years back. Could you send over that tax form again? Dorian's confused. Another. Are you around this weekend? We could use help setting up chairs. Every time I showed up, quietly, without a fuss, I wasn't part of the family's joy. I was just a convenience, a body that made things run smoother. I blinked hard, willing the sting behind my eyes to recede. I pulled up the rideshare app. My thumb hovered over the request button. I could leave. No one would notice. No one would text me tomorrow to ask why. They'd just be relieved I didn't make things about me. But I didn't press it. Instead, I locked the screen and slid the phone into my purse. Not yet. I stood up slowly, the glass in my hand empty now, my posture straighter than it had been all day. If I was going to vanish, it wouldn't be quietly. Not this time. I wasn't sure what I expected to happen in those 10 minutes, but it wasn't this. I'd barely made it 5 steps past the ballroom's threshold when I saw her. Jill Sorrento. We hadn't spoken in over a decade, but I recognized her instantly. Same sharp bob, same confident posture. She was standing by the indoor bar, swirling a drink with one hand and scanning the room like she was watching a play. When our eyes met, her brows lifted. Talina? I nodded, unsure whether I should smile or vanish. But Jill didn't hesitate. She walked straight over and pulled me into a loose hug, the kind you give when the world around you feels just off. I saw everything, she said under her breath. You've got the patience of a monk. I would have lit this place on fire. I exhaled through a stiff smile. Why give them what they want? She tilted her head. What do they want? For me to lose it. For me to be exactly who they say I am. Difficult, cold, dramatic. I'd rather disappoint them quietly. Jill let out a soft laugh, then turned more serious. You always were sharper than the rest of us. I forgot how calm you stay when people deserve to be torn apart. We stood there in silence for a moment, listening to the noise from the ballroom swell again, glasses clinking, someone shouting Romy's name for a toast, laughter that sounded more like performance than joy. Then Jill added, You know, Romy once told our whole group back in college that your family pulled her out of a financial mess. Like, heroically. Said she was about to lose her apartment and your parents swooped in with help. I didn't say a word at first, but my stomach flipped. I knew exactly what financial mess she was referring to. It was my money. I remembered the call like it happened yesterday. Romy crying, panicked, said her car had broken down on the interstate, that she needed $4,000 to cover emergency repairs and couldn't wait for payday. Swore she'd pay it back in a month. I didn't even hesitate. I wired the money within the hour. She never brought it up again. 2 months later, I overheard my mother telling a neighbor, We've been supporting Romy through a tough patch. She's had it rough, poor thing. As if I didn't exist. As if the transfer never left my account. I looked at Jill and smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Yeah, they're generous like that. She studied me for a second, then dropped her voice. Why didn't you correct me back then? Because what's the point? I said. When someone spent years making sure the truth is only heard when it flatters them, you learn to stop offering corrections. You start saving your energy for things that matter. I sipped my drink and glanced around. Everyone moved through the party like dancers on a script. The spotlight stayed fixed on Romy, her fiancé beaming beside her, while my mother orchestrated everything with the precision of a military general. And yet somehow, none of them noticed what was unraveling at the edges. Jill nudged me gently. I hope you're not staying much longer. I told myself 10 more minutes, I said. She looked at me with something like concern. You don't belong here. I met her eyes. Neither do they. She pulled me in for a second hug, this one warmer. Don't let them shrink you down. When she walked off toward the coat check, I stayed where I was, still, breathing in the scent of white roses and overpriced perfume. I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, and typed just 3 words. Never again. Then I locked the screen and set the phone down on the edge of the bar. It didn't feel like a breakdown. It felt like a promise. A few minutes later, my mother walked by, fussing with a flower arrangement near the dessert table. She glanced in my direction, Didn't wave, didn't smile, but I didn't look away, because the first real crack wasn't in my voice. It was in the way I saw them now. I moved slowly through the hallway, the faint hum of conversation trailing behind me like a reminder I didn't belong. There was no fire in me anymore, just precision. No trembling hands, no shaky breath. Just one thought cutting through the rest. Keep walking. The gift table stood near the reception area, adorned in white linen and scattered with bows and ribbons that shimmered under the chandeliers. I hadn't meant to stop, but something tugged at me. There it was. A small silver box with the exact navy blue ribbon I had tied around it. My box. I inched closer, as if hypnotized. A group of women was huddled nearby, admiring something. "Oh, this is just stunning," one of them gushed. "Leave it to Lorna to have taste. This necklace is beautiful, timeless." Necklace? I stepped just far enough to glimpse it. The chain, the pearl, the exact one I had chosen for Romy, a soft gray luster, delicate but bold. I remembered the hours spent looking for something meaningful. And now? "She said her mom got it for her," another added. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I just stood there while my ears rang and my mouth tasted metal. Romy had taken the necklace I gave her, repackaged it, and passed it off as something from our mother. She stole the gift. But more than that, she stole the story. My breath steadied, and I turned away, heading toward the back patio without a word. I needed air. I needed space from this theater of curated lies. Before I made it to the door, my phone buzzed. "Dad." Text message. "Disappointed in how you've behaved today. Keep it together. Don't start anything." I stared at it, stunned. That's what he chose to say? Not "how are you?" Not "sorry we didn't include you." Not even a pitiful "glad you came." Just a warning. Keep it together. Because God forbid I disrupt the performance. I tightened my grip on the phone and walked outside. The air was crisp, the sky perfectly blue. A breeze moved through the trees, mocking the storm building inside me. I sat down on a concrete bench and opened my banking app. 2 years of transactions, neatly lined month after month. Electric bill, $212. Car repair, $887. Medical copay, $163. One payment after another, some labeled Mom, some Dad, some just Emergency. I scrolled past Christmases, birthdays, weeks where they didn't even text me but had no issue requesting money. Total, $16,275.62. No one had ever said thank you. Not once. My thumb hovered over the recurring payments tab. Then I began tapping. Cancel. 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 Water. Gas. Internet. Cell phone. All gone. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I just knew I was done. No memo, no farewell note, no drama, just the final quiet flick of a switch. I sat there for a while, letting it settle in my bones. My life. Finally, my own again. When I walked back inside, the lights felt warmer somehow, the music less shrill. Or maybe it was just me. Clearer, colder, sharper. Nobody noticed my return. No one looked my way. And for the first time in this whole event, I liked it that way. I drifted past the gift table again. The necklace sat inside its box, open now, a symbol of something lovely stolen and misshaped. But I didn't stop. I picked up a glass of champagne, raised it slightly, not to toast, not to join in, but to remind myself, I am still here. And now? I was done asking for space. I was ready to take it. The clink of silverware and chatter of guests blurred into the background as I made my way toward the main lawn, where the engagement stage had been set up for speeches and photos. The sky had shifted to a deep gold, catching on the chandeliers strung through the trees. I told myself I'd stay 10 more minutes. That was the deal. But I didn't know those 10 minutes would start with his voice. Dorian stood under the archway draped in white florals, holding Romy's hand as the MC welcomed him to say a few words. The crowd quieted, phone cameras lifted. I stayed near the side, close enough to hear but distant enough to disappear. Then Dorian's eyes scanned the crowd and landed on me. He tilted his head slightly, a small pause in his step, as if trying to place a face that didn't belong here. And then, recognition. A slow, almost reverent smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. He stepped off the platform, ignoring the mic the MC offered, and walked directly toward me. "Hi, boss," he said, loud enough for the lawn to hear. Everything stopped. I mean everything. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Forks hovered over plates. One of the violinists even dropped her bow. It was like someone hit mute on the entire scene. I didn't say a word. Romy's hand flew to her mouth. The champagne glass she held slipped and shattered on the brick pathway. Lorna's wine glass tipped and rolled off her table, staining her pale pink dress like a wound. What did you say?" Romy asked, her voice a strangled whisper that could still somehow be heard by everyone. Dorian blinked, confused. "She's my boss. I transferred to Boston 2 weeks ago. She's the COO of the entire biotech division. Didn't she tell you?" No one looked at me. They were too busy trying to make sense of it all, how the person they'd erased had suddenly reappeared with gravity. "She never told us," Lorna stammered, staring at me as if I'd betrayed some unspoken contract. "You never asked," I replied calmly. Frank stepped forward, arms crossed like he was gearing up for a showdown. "So what is this? Some kind of performance? You couldn't just let your sister have her day?" My chest burned, but I kept my face still. "I came here with a gift. A real one. You decided it wasn't enough." "This is disgusting," Romy snapped. "You planned this. You planned all of it. Just to ruin me." I felt something crack, but not inside me. Inside them. Their faces, drained of color, flushed with heat, no longer held the smug certainty I'd seen all afternoon. Now they were exposed. "I didn't plan anything," I said, voice even. "I came here hoping to be your sister. But apparently that seat was already taken by someone more convenient." Romy shook her head violently. "You don't get to destroy this for me." I turned slowly toward her, meeting her eyes. She was shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that she had been standing on a pedestal built from my silence. "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "You already did." Then I turned and walked away, not looking back. Every step felt like air returning to my lungs. The silence I used to fear now followed me like armor. As I neared the edge of the garden, I heard murmurs ripple through the guests. One voice, uncertain and hushed, asked, "Wait, is that the sister they always said was in New York?" Another, sharper, replied, "No, she's the one Romy never talks about." Good, let them talk. By the time I got home that night, my phone had already begun to buzz with notifications. I ignored them. The walk back to my apartment had been quiet, cold, even for spring. I hadn't taken off my heels, and I didn't turn on the lights when I stepped inside. Just a slow exhale. Not because I was relieved, but because I was empty, not drained, not broken, just done. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, earlier than usual. The city hadn't fully woken up, and neither had I. I unlocked my door, slid my bag onto the chair, and opened my laptop. The inbox lit up, and there it was, Dorian's message. Subject, "I owe you more than an apology." I ended things with Romy, the email began. Not because of last night, but because I saw something clearly for the first time. "I've never respected someone more than I respect you. Thank you for not humiliating me back. Thank you for standing tall. I didn't know people like you existed." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because it was finally enough to just know someone had seen me. Really seen me. And not in spite of who I was, but because of it. That evening, just as I settled into the couch with a mug of chamomile, my phone lit up again. "Mom. Things got out of hand," the message read. "Can you please help us with the power bill? Your father's trying to fix things. Be the bigger person." There it was again. That phrase, "be the bigger person." Not a single word acknowledging the years of silence. Not 1 ounce of recognition for what they'd done to me. Just another transaction request, like I was still their invisible daughter-turned-banker. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my financial app and scrolled. Every auto payment remained disabled. I added a note to their file. Refused, not due to inability, but due to repeated disrespect. It felt right. Not triumphant, just truthful. There was no pleasure in the refusal, only peace. Later that night, while brushing my teeth, I overheard my neighbor's TV through the wall. The entertainment news segment caught my attention. Romy's name. I leaned in. She wasn't trending for the engagement anymore. She was trending for the fallout. Clips from the event had surfaced, one in particular where Dorian calls me boss in front of dozens of shocked guests. The video had gone viral, and someone had unearthed an old press photo from a biotech gala years ago. Me in a silver evening dress, Dorian a few steps behind, mid-applause. I didn't post it. I hadn't even seen it since that night. But now it was everywhere. The internet was divided. Some called it poetic justice. Others called me calculated. Cold. Some accused me of orchestrating the whole thing. I didn't respond to any of it. What they thought didn't matter anymore. Because the ones who knew the full story never bothered to ask it. My phone vibrated again. This time a new message from Romy. Please, can you talk to him for me? I stared at it for a long moment, and then I locked the screen without opening it. Not because I hated her, not even because she deserved it, but because silence has a weight she never learned to carry, and I was finally done helping her balance it. By Tuesday, the noise had quieted, but the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. I spent the day organizing files, following up with my team, finalizing reports that had nothing to do with weddings, family, or viral moments. It felt like rinsing off everything that didn't belong, and then Sunday came. A knock at the door. I paused mid-pour, my coffee halfway into the mug. When I checked the peephole, I didn't flinch. My parents. My mother was clutching a tin of her sugar-dusted lemon cookies like it was a peace treaty. My father stood behind her, face rigid as stone. I opened the door slowly. "Hi," I said. Nothing more. They stepped inside cautiously, as if entering the home of a stranger, which in some ways they were. "We wanted to talk," my mother said, placing the tin on the counter without being asked, "just as family." I nodded to the dining table. No hugs, no greetings, just space. We sat. My father was the first to speak. "We raised you for over 30 years, Thelina. You didn't get here on your own." I said nothing. He continued, "We're not asking for much. $2,000 a month. That's all. We know you're doing well. You're stable. Romy, things didn't turn out as planned." My mother chimed in, her tone syrupy. "It would mean a lot. Just a little help. Until things settle." I waited until they were done. Fully done. Then I placed my hands flat on the table and met their eyes. "If Romy matches that support, and if you revise your will with equal standing in my name, then we can talk." My father looked like I'd just slapped him. "You're putting conditions on your own parents?" he spat. I didn't raise my voice. "You put conditions on your daughter long ago. I just finally learned to read them." His hand hit the table, loud and hollow. My mother teared up. "You've changed," she whispered. "I've clarified," I corrected. They left a few minutes later, muttering under their breath, the tin of cookies still on the table. The door shut behind them without echo. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from regret, but from clarity. I scrolled through my voice memos, unsure of what I was looking for. And then I found it. An old recording from years ago. My mother's voice. "If you don't know how to make people feel comfortable, maybe don't show up at all." It hit me harder than I expected. I listened once, then I deleted it. Out loud to no one, I said, "You didn't raise me to be cruel, but you taught me that being kind wouldn't protect me either." I opened my photo album, replaced the childhood image of me and Romy in matching bows with a sunset over the last biotech summit I spoke at. I emailed Della, our head of marketing. "Thank you for staying out of the mess and always letting my work speak louder." She replied with a smiley face and a single line, "You never had to prove yourself to us. You just did." Later that night, Romy messaged me again. "Please, he won't answer me. Can you talk to him? Just this once?" I locked my phone. Didn't reply. Didn't even open it. Some things don't deserve a final word. I stepped out onto the porch. It was chilly, but calm. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, pulled my hair into a loose knot, and sat down alone. Not because no one invited me to the table, but because I'd finally built my own. Sometimes the deepest pain isn't from what was said, but from everything they never bothered to ask. Thalina didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. What would you do if your own family erased you from your story, then asked you to fix theirs? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful family drama stories that speak truth, healing, and the strength it takes to walk away. Let us know in the comments, was she right to stay silent, or would you have said more?
Did you enjoy my story? What a journey it has been. I truly wonder, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have chosen silence to keep the peace, or would you have done what I did to reclaim your dignity? Let's meet in the comments below. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. I'm reading every single one. Which city are you listening from tonight? If my story resonated with you, you can support me and help me bring more stories like this to the world by sending a super thanks. Your sweet support means the world to me and allows me to continue this journey with all of you. On the screen now, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend you watch next. There are so many more on my channel, each with its own lessons and triumphs. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you for being here with me. Until the next story, with love and respect.